The mighty warrior race. Saiyans are probably one of the most well-known alien races in pop culture, at least as far as the ones that originate from an anime are concerned. But that's not stopping me. Now, unlike the previous entry, there are many known Saiyans. So who am I using for a baseline? Well, I guess Radish the Hedgehog over here will do. Raditz, with a power level of either 1200 or slightly higher, depending on the source, is considered a mid-class Saiyan. Not low class and not elite. He is middle of the road, hopefully making him a fairly decent baseline of the average Saiyan's abilities. A bit of a note here. I am only going over things all Saiyans should be capable of. If an ability is specific to a certain character, like Gohan's rage-based power increases, I am not counting them. I am also not going over what the surviving Saiyans become capable of much further down the line, just what the average ones pre-arrival should be able to do, at least in theory. Finally, this is about the main timeline Saiyans, not the Universe 6 version. Alright, let's talk powers and abilities. Getting this one out of the way real quick, most Saiyans can fly at least Mach speeds. This almost seems to be instinctive in the race, with the understandable exception of severe head trauma at a young age. And while Goten, a hybrid, did not seem to know how instinctively, once he was shown it was possible, he seemed to pick up the ability without effort. On to their adaptability. Two of the most important things to know about Saiyans is that when a Saiyan is pushed in battle, they can greatly increase their own strength mid-fight, through what seems to be sheer force of will, and a Saiyan who is severely injured and recovers gains an even greater boost in strength. Both of these abilities explain why Goku was so much weaker than Raditz during arrival, despite only being slightly younger. Raditz has fought battles, many of which were likely against fairly powerful aliens, probably constantly, while Goku mostly fought when he either needed to or in tournament scenarios. All of this does mean, if somebody defeats a Saiyan, they better be damn sure to finish them off, because their next fight with that Saiyan will be a much different and likely more painful experience. How strong is a Saiyan? A child Goku with a power level that could likely not have exceeded 50 moves a large boulder with, admittedly, great effort. Said boulder likely weighed around 2.5 million pounds, or 1.19 million kilograms, as per the estimated math of people vastly smarter than me. Now, if power level scaled relatively stably, then a rival Goku with a power level of 416 should be able to lift approximately 22 million pounds, or 9.9 million kilograms, while Raditz, at approximately 1200, which is the lowest stated power level of said character, he has higher in other sources, could lift about 63 million pounds, or 28.5 million kilograms. This is, of course, assuming that these levels scale evenly, which they obviously do not, so these estimates are extreme lowballs. To put that in a more understandable context, Raditz would be at that point lifting 787.5 fully loaded semis. Not just the truck or just the trailer, but the truck with the trailer fully loaded down. At a bare minimum, that's how much he can lift. How fast is a Saiyan? Well, Raditz was stated by Piccolo, in the dub at least, to have moved at faster than light speed to have dodged his special beam cannon, which I have no problem believing, considering even a child Goku was able to move so fast that his opponent's eyes didn't even register he had moved. That's not even considering how fast someone would have to move to create an optical illusion that causes them to appear in several places at once. And he outrun a solar flare, a technique that uses light to blind its target, as a child. Considering all of this, I am comfortable saying Saiyans in general are at bare minimum borderline light speed, and they only get faster as they get stronger. Ki is the energy which Saiyans use to fuel most of their abilities. Okay, a bit of context first. During the events of Dragon Ball, King Piccolo destroyed entire cities with effortless individual Ki attacks, and Master Roshi destroyed the Earth's moon. Both of these characters were at the time nowhere near as powerful as Raditz, or even a rival Goku, so at bare minimum, even a low-class Saiyan should be able to come close to duplicating the effect with their own Ki. Ki, at its most mundane, can be used to fly, create defensive barriers, form offensive beams of energy, and it can also be used to vastly increase its user's speed, strength, and durability. It can also be used to create energy constructs that can mimic forms of light. More on that one a bit later. Now, as far as Ki is concerned, I do want to go over something that has bugged me for a while. A small number of people seem to think that just because characters in Dragon Ball Z do not use planet or moon-busting attacks against opponents means they are unable to. However, think for a second what would happen to somebody who needs to breathe air if they accidentally destroy the planet they were standing on. Ki attacks are usually used as big finishers after an opponent has been weakened, because missing your target with what is usually the equivalent of a Death Star laser is a very bad idea. Oh boy. A Saiyan's durability only kind of scales to their offensive capabilities, and is otherwise usually all over the place. This is mostly because of Dragon Ball Z's rather ridiculous scaling. In the manga, Raditz tanks a moon-level attack, at least as stated by official materials. As such, even low-ranking Saiyans should be able to survive mountain-level attacks without any real issue, at least if they're properly trained and live the rather volatile life of a Saiyan, considering their ability to gain strength through combat. Bullets, and even missiles, are not a real threat to a Saiyan. In fact, even Saiyan children are usually depicted as outright bulletproof. Saiyans can transform. They have two different natural transformations, the first of which basically any Saiyan, that still has their tail, can artificially force by creating a small orb of Ki that mimics the light of a full moon. Told you I'd come back to it. This transformation is into a Great Ape or Uzaru form, and yes, I am certain I mispronounced that. More importantly, this transformation greatly increases a Saiyan's size and multiplies their power by 10. While it does not seem to increase speed, it also does not decrease it. This means that even the weakest adult, or even adolescent Saiyan, could at least for a time gain power on par with Raditz, if they can control said form. The other natural transformation requires a great deal more than some simple light show to achieve, at least for full-blooded Saiyans. This form is called Super Saiyan, and mostly seems to require an extreme emotional response in order to achieve. And when I say extreme, I mean it. The agony of losing someone close to you, or the existential dread of realizing that everything you knew may be wrong, are a few examples. The most common idea behind the increase this form causes is that it multiplies the user's ability by 50. There is some debate as to how true this is, however, considering the massive increase in Goku's power when he first transformed, this seems at least reasonable to me. This means that if Raditz somehow achieved Super Saiyan during the events of Arrival, he would dwarf Saiyan Saga Vegeta, as he would at bare minimum be over 3 times stronger than the Prince. So, how many Saiyans are there? Well, during their heyday, there was an entire planet of them. And while I cannot find an exact number, I am comfortable assuming there were at least a couple 100,000 at bare minimum. There were probably a lot more than that. Current population within canon is obviously much lower, yet still honestly unknown. There is no telling how many Saiyans were off-world during Frieza's little temper tantrum, and while it appears the majority of the race was on the homeworld, any that weren't could have simply laid low after said events. In canon, we do know of at least 4 pure-blooded Saiyans, and at least 5 Saiyan-human hybrids that are alive. What weaknesses and limits do Saiyans possess? Saiyans require a breathable atmosphere to survive. They also require an extremely high-calorie diet, since a hungry Saiyan often loses the vast majority of their power and has trouble concentrating. If a Saiyan were to lose their tail, they lose the ability to transform into a great ape until said tail grows back. And yes, their tails grow back like a dang lizard's, although a Saiyan's tail grows back all at once. This does take a decent amount of time, though. Oh yeah, a Saiyan's tail, when grabbed, paralyzes said Saiyan. They can train to overcome this, however most of the lower class ones just keep their tails wrapped around their waists. Well, there you have it, the mighty Saiyan race. And remember, there's always a bigger fish. Or in this case, a bigger ET.